You wake up like your life depends on it, because it does. Every morning isn't just another page on the calendar, it's a fresh battlefield, a new mission. And if you're rolling out of bed with no direction, no conviction, and no fire, then you're already 2 steps behind the version of you that could have been you. Purpose doesn't clock in at 9 and check out at 5. Purpose is a war cry, not a whisper. It's not just what you do, it's why you breathe. And when you live without it, you're not living. You're existing in neutral, drifting, waiting to crash. Most people don't need more time. They need more urgency. They need to wake up with a mindset that says, today is mine. Today is non-negotiable. Today I fight. Because the truth is, life doesn't hand you peace. It demands effort. It doesn't owe you progress. It demands discipline. And the moment you start treating your mornings like they're optional, like they're slow starts to another repeat of yesterday, you give away your edge. You surrender before you've even entered the fight. Your alarm clock isn't just noise. It's a signal, a call to arms, a reminder that you've been given another chance to build, break, climb, or cut loose. And yet, how often do you hit snooze on your purpose? How many times do you trade your mission for comfort, your calling for convenience? Your breakthrough for a few more minutes of numbness under the covers? That's not sleep. That's sabotage in disguise. You don't need coffee. You need clarity. You need to wake up, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You need to remind yourself the clock is ticking on the person you're meant to become. Every day you delay is a day you'll never get back. You are not promised another sunrise, so stop acting like you've got an unlimited supply. Start treating every day like it's the last chance you'll get to move the needle, to prove to yourself that you're not just here to exist, you're here to execute. People are waiting to see you step into your power. Your future self is watching, and so are the ones who said you'd never change. The world doesn't need more passive observers. It needs warriors who wake up like they're on a mission. You weren't born to blend into the routine. You were built to break routine and build momentum. But it starts the moment your eyes open. That's when the battle begins, not in the boardroom, not on the stage, not when the camera's rolling or when the world is watching. It begins in the dark, in silence, when no one's clapping you. When it's just you and the decision to rise, some people wake up and check their phones. Others wake up and check their pulse. Which one are you? Because if your mission doesn't make your heart beat faster, it's not big enough. You should feel pressure. You should feel fire. That's the signal that you're alive. That's the proof that purpose is calling. Waking up with purpose is not about perfection. It's about precision. You may not control every obstacle that comes your way, but you control the attitude you bring to the arena. You control how you show up, and that matters more than anything else. Because when you show up with purpose, people notice, environments shift, doubt loses power, and excuses die. There will be voices internal and external that tell you to slow down, to settle, to play it safe. But they're not the ones responsible for your results. You are. You're the pilot of this mission. You don't get to blame the turbulence. You don't get to outsource the crash. So wake up like you've got a flight to lead, because you do. The destination, it's the next level of you. And no one's coming to carry you there. It's on you to rise every single morning like your legacy depends on it. The enemy wears familiar faces. That's the reality most people never prepare for. You grow up thinking danger comes from the outside, from strangers, from chaos, from the unknown. But the real threats don't always knock loudly. Sometimes they come in quietly, smiling, wearing names you trust and faces you've known for years. They eat at your table. They speak your language. They celebrate your wins. But only when those wins don't make them feel small, they'll cheer for you until you start flying higher than their comfort zone allows. And when you do, they won't attack with fists. They'll come for you with guilt, sarcasm, and manipulation dressed as love. It's easy to guard the front door of your life from the world. It's harder to see when the back door was already open and the enemy was invited in as a guest. Most people don't question the familiar. They assume that proximity equals loyalty. That history equals integrity, and that shared blood means shared vision. But the truth is, some of the most dangerous people in your life are the ones who once loved you most or said they did. They don't hate you for who you are. They resent you for who you're becoming. They're threatened by your growth because it exposes their stagnation. They'll say things like, don't forget where you came from, not as a reminder of your roots, but as a leash to keep you grounded in your past. They'll use phrases like, you've changed, as an accusation, not a compliment. And if you don't catch it early, their doubt becomes your internal dialogue. Their limitations become your invisible ceiling. Their fear becomes your inherited mindset. That's how familiar enemies operate, not by destroying you outright, but by slowly convincing you to shrink yourself, to stay in their comfort zone. Sometimes the enemy is that old friend who keeps you chained to a version of you that no longer fits you. Sometimes it's that family member who weaponizes loyalty to keep you compliant. They don't say, don't grow. They say, why do you need all that? They don't say, stay weak. They say, you're doing too much. But their words are never just words. They're control disguised as concern. And if you don't learn to decode that language, you'll keep confusing love with sabotage. The enemy doesn't always lie. Sometimes they just twist the truth until it benefits them. They know your weaknesses because you shared them. They know your triggers because they help create them. And when the time is right, when you're on the edge of your breakthrough, they'll press those buttons to pull you back. That's not paranoia. That's awareness. That's what it means to protect your momentum. You don't just build boundaries around your time. You build them around your energy, your vision, and your evolution. But recognizing the enemy in familiar faces isn't about becoming bitter or suspicious. It's about becoming precise. You need to know who drains you and who fuels you. Who applauds your courage and who gets uncomfortable when you speak with confidence. Who challenges you to rise and who subtly nudges you back into survival mode. It's not about cutting everyone off. It's about elevating your standards so high that people either rise with you or remove themselves. Your circle is either your runway or your cage. It either clears your path or crowds your vision. The ones meant for your future will never be offended by your flight. They'll bring fuel, not fire. But the ones who fear your altitude will try to clip your wings under the guise of keeping you grounded. And the longer you pretend not to notice, the more you become complicit in your own sabotage. You can't afford to romanticize people's roles in your life just because they were there in the beginning. Just because someone started with you doesn't mean they're equipped to grow with you. Loyalty to the past can't cost you your future. You've got to see clearly, even if it hurts, even if it shocks you, even if the enemy is the last face you ever thought to question. Because elevation demands separation. And sometimes the hardest war is the one you wage at home, not with fists or fury, but with clarity, conviction, and the courage to walk away from what once felt safe. A trust is earned, not inherited. That statement cuts deeper the more you live. In a world where people hand out trust like candy to those with the same bloodline, last name, or childhood history, you've got to learn early that proximity doesn't equal integrity. Just because someone shares your DNA doesn't mean they share your values. Just because someone's been around for years doesn't mean they've earned a seat at your table today. Loyalty isn't measured by time, it's measured by truth, by consistency, by alignment when it matters most. The most dangerous assumption you can make is thinking someone is trustworthy just because they were there when you were weak. Being present during your pain doesn't automatically qualify someone to walk beside you during your purpose. Some people were only there because your brokenness made them feel useful. Your healing threatens them, your growth intimidates them, and they'll dress it up as concern, but behind the curtain, they're hoping you'll fall because your rise makes them face everything they've avoided in themselves. Trust is a currency that's paid out over time with actions, not just words. Anyone can say, I've got your back, but when the pressure hits, when you're in the middle of your battle, when your mission demands more than their comfort allows, that's when the truth reveals itself. Real trust isn't loud. It's proven in silence, in loyalty that shows up when no one's watching you, in support that doesn't flinch when your elevation exposes their stagnation. It's proven when someone doesn't just tolerate your greatness, they protect it. Inherited trust is a myth sold to keep you controlled, to keep you bound to the expectations of people who haven't earned your energy. Just because they changed your diapers doesn't mean they understand your destiny. Just because they helped you survive doesn't mean they're the ones to help you thrive. Trust isn't about the past, it's about the present pattern. Do they show up consistently? Do they match your growth with their own? Or do they demand loyalty while offering none in return? The ones who demand trust the most are often the least deserving of it. They manipulate the word family like it's a free pass for emotional debt. They throw around phrases like, after everything I've done for you, as if their past sacrifice justifies their current toxicity. But trust can't be forced. It can't be inherited by blood. It's earned through integrity, accountability, and emotional safety. If someone constantly makes you feel small, second guesses your voice, or guilts you into compliance, they haven't earned trust. They've demanded control. People confuse forgiveness with access. You can forgive someone and still never trust them again. Forgiveness is about you. Trust is about them. You. And the ones who deserve it don't ask for it. They show up for it again and again. They don't just celebrate you when it's convenient. They stay consistent when it's messy. When your growth stretches the relationship, when your clarity burns away the codependence. Trust is earned in those hard spaces, not in handshakes or holiday photos. Sometimes the hardest people to stop trusting are the ones who raised you, who've known you since the beginning. But you've got to ask yourself, are they still showing up with the same heart, the same alignment, the same respect you give them? Or are you trusting a version of them that hasn't existed in years? Nostalgia is not a foundation for trust. You can love someone and not trust them. You can honor their role in your past and still protect your peace in the present. That's not disloyalty. That's wisdom. The cost of misplaced trust isn't just disappointment. It's distraction. Every time you give your trust to someone who hasn't earned it, you drain energy that could have been used to fuel your mission. You create access points for betrayal. You allow yourself to be vulnerable to people who haven't proven they'll handle that vulnerability with care. And then you wonder why you feel drained, disoriented, or delayed. It's not always because you're doing something wrong. It's often because you're trusting the wrong people. Because you mistook shared blood for shared vision. Because you thought time equaled truth. Because you inherited your relationships instead of evaluating them with clarity and courage. Purpose isn't optional. It's your battlefield position. If you're not locked in, you're a target. The world is not a playground, it's a war zone. And if you think floating through life without a mission is harmless, you're already under fire. Purpose is not some poetic phrase or self-help cliche. It's a tactical necessity. When you don't know who you are or what you're fighting for, you're vulnerable to every distraction, every manipulator, every lie dressed as love. You don't just lose time, you lose ground. Your ground you'll have to fight twice as hard to reclaim if you ever wake up. When you know your purpose, it sharpens your vision. It turns maybe into move. It turns confusion into conviction. It tells you who belongs on your team and who's a liability in disguise. Purpose gives you a reason to get up when your body screams, stay down. It fuels your endurance in the storms and gives your pain a direction. Without it, your emotions drive the mission. And when emotions take the wheel, betrayal feels like love, sabotage looks like support, and wasting time feels justified. Purpose is the weapon that cuts through noise. It exposes what's false and clarifies what's real. It draws a line in the sand between what looks good and what builds greatness. People without purpose become magnets for manipulation. They settle for applause over alignment. They become reactors instead of responders. And here's the brutal truth. If you're not aligned with your mission, someone will assign you to theirs. And they won't care if it drains you, breaks you, or costs you everything. They'll exploit your gifts, guilt trip your loyalty, and label your exhaustion as a lack of commitment. That's what happens when you're not locked in. You become a tool in someone else's battle plan. And trust me, they won't give you armor. They'll give you burdens. Being locked in doesn't mean you're perfect. It means you're positioned. It means you know what you stand for even if your knees are shaking. It means you've drawn your coordinates and you're not shifting every time a storm hits. You're not just surviving chaos, you're navigating through it with strategy. And that kind of focus doesn't go unnoticed. The wrong people will hate it. The insecure will mock it. The fake will fear it. Because when you lock into purpose, you expose every place they've been pretending. You remind them of everything they gave up on. And you will not be popular for it. But you weren't built for popularity, you were built for power. And power without purpose is a threat to everything pure inside you. Power without purpose is unstable, self-destructive, and easily hijacked. That's why the most dangerous version of you is the one who is both powerful and aligned. The one who doesn't chase validation because mission is enough. The one who doesn't flinch when the familiar becomes hostile. The one who isn't afraid to stand alone if it means standing for something. And when you're that locked in, you see the battlefield differently. You're not distracted by every whisper, every dart, every betrayal. You calculate moves. You recognize patterns. You discern spirits, not just words. You know when to speak and when to stay silent, when to engage and when to retreat. Purpose teaches you to conserve energy, to protect your peace, to guard your gates. Because when you're truly on mission, every second counts. Every decision matters. Every connection is either a threat or an ally. There is no neutral in warfare, and there is no safety in passivity. The enemy wears familiar faces. Demons don't show up with horns. They show up with smiles. That's the trap most people fall into. They're waiting for evil to look evil, for betrayal to look obvious, for sabotage to announce itself. But the truth is the most dangerous threats don't come kicking down your front door. They come in through the people you've already let in. They speak your language. They know your history. They call you brother, a friend, a family. And that's exactly why they're effective. Because when your guard is down, your clarity is compromised. You assume love means loyalty. You assume shared blood means shared values. You assume the ones who clap for you in public aren't cutting you in private. And that assumption is exactly how the enemy gains ground. Because when you don't believe the war is inside your circle, you won't check your perimeter. You'll overlook the signs. You'll excuse the red flags. You'll say, they're just having a bad day, or that's just how they are. You'll mistake manipulation for care, passive aggression for honesty, and emotional control for protection. And by the time you realize what's happening, the damage is already done. Not because you were weak, but because you were loyal to a lie. Some of the people who pray for your success in front of others secretly hope you fail. They feel threatened by your growth, convicted by your vision, and annoyed by your healing. They liked you better when you were broken, confused, and dependent. You were easier to manage then, easier to manipulate, easier to control. Now you're getting clear. You're setting boundaries. You're walking in purpose. And suddenly the smiles get colder, the jokes get sharper, the advice starts sounding like sabotage. Pay attention. The enemy doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. They'll say you've changed, and you have, but not in the way they mean. You're becoming who you were meant to be. And that's threatening to those who only supported the version of you that made them feel superior. They were never for your freedom. They were for your limitation. As long as your wings were clipped, they clapped, but start flying, and suddenly they're uncomfortable. They remind you of your past. They make you question your worth. They downplay your wins because demons can't stand the light. And when you shine, they either flee or fight harder to dim it. These people don't need to scream to be dangerous. Some will show up with gifts. Some will send just checking on you messages. Some will quote scripture. Some will hug you while hating you. Some will offer help that's really just a leash. And you won't recognize the game if you're only looking for villains in shadows instead of vipers in your circle. Discernment isn't paranoia. It's protection. And it's your responsibility to train it because nobody else is going to guard your soul like you should. You're the gatekeeper. You're the one who decides who gets access to your peace, your time, your energy, your mission. And don't get it twisted. Calling them out isn't the goal. Cutting them off isn't always necessary, but clarity is. You need to see people for who they are, not who they pretend to be. Don't let shared memories blind you to present motives. Don't let emotional debt keep you in spiritual bondage. If someone drains you every time they show up with you, that's not family. That's a distraction in disguise. If someone constantly questions your clarity, that's not concern. That's covert warfare. They want to break your focus, not build your future. You have to learn to look past the surface, to read the room when the room is full of people who used to cheer but now sit silent. You've got to stop explaining your shift to people who are allergic to growth, because the longer you justify their presence, the deeper their poison seeps into your vision. You don't need permission to protect yourself. You don't need consensus to trust your gut. When your spirit picks up static, don't mute it with sentiment. Smile back if you must, but don't forget who's behind the mask. Recognize the game, adjust your posture, and walk with wisdom. Weak circles drain strong visions, not always with insults, not always with outright sabotage, but with subtle doubt, silent competition, and invisible resistance. When you're called to do something uncommon, you can't afford to be surrounded by the ordinary. Weak circles don't attack you head on. They erode your edge over time. Every delay in action, every second guessing of your calling, every watered down version of your voice is often the result of the people you've allowed into your atmosphere. Not all weight is obvious. Sometimes it looks like support. Sometimes it sounds like concern. But its real purpose is to keep you grounded when you were made to fly. You can't rise when you're tethered to people who don't believe in altitude. They'll say they care, but their energy says otherwise. They don't celebrate your progress. They tolerate it. They don't sharpen your thinking. They distract it. They're present, but they're not aligned. you. They're available, but they're not committed. And there is nothing more dangerous than surrounding yourself with people who claim to walk with you, but secretly hope you don't outgrow them, you. Because your growth confronts their comfort. Your clarity reminds them of their confusion. Your vision makes their excuses harder to justify. A weak circle will mask their discomfort with fake praise. They'll say all the right things, but their spirit will feel off. You'll feel the lack of enthusiasm behind the applause. You'll notice they only show up when it benefits them, you. You'll sense the shift when you start speaking with conviction and they start cracking jokes. That's not lighthearted banter. That's resistance. Because weak circles are built on familiarity, you, not faith. They want the old you, the accessible you, the version that didn't dream too loud or move too fast, the version that kept their egos safe and their standards untouched. And when you start evolving, they'll call it pride. They'll call it distance. They'll call it change like it's a curse. But what it really is growth, you. And growth demands alignment. Growth demands friction. Not the kind that tears down, but the kind that sharpens. If everyone in your circle agrees with you all the time, you're not in a circle. You're in an echo chamber. Vision needs challenge. Vision needs precision. It needs people who aren't intimidated by your potential, but committed to it, you. People who hold you accountable, not hostage. People who confront your blind spots, not weaponize them. People who can see the storm coming and remind you you're still built to fly through it, you. Because strong vision can only thrive in strong environments. But we settle out of fear, out of guilt, out of emotional debt. We keep people close who don't feed our future, you. Just because they shared our past, we overextend, overexplain, and overcompensate to maintain connections that no longer serve where we're going. And in doing so, we dilute the very thing we're called to deliver to the world. Vision doesn't die overnight. It dies from slow leaks. Leaks of energy, leaks of clarity, leaks of belief, you. And most of those leaks are coming from the circle you think is loyal. If your circle doesn't challenge you to stretch, it's silently training you to shrink. If you're constantly having to dim your light so others feel comfortable, you're not in a circle, you're in a cage. And cages don't need bars to be effective. All they need is fear, obligation, you, and convenience. The enemy of purpose is not always opposition. Sometimes it's the people close to you playing small and convincing you to do the same, you. People who pat you on the back while pulling you off course. People who reward your hesitation but question your confidence. You weren't called to impress your circle, you. You were called to impact beyond it. And that means you may outgrow the space that once felt like home. It means you may have to disappoint people who benefited from your silence. It means you'll have to walk alone at times, not because you're arrogant, but because you're accurate in your mission, accurate in your assignment, you, accurate in your awareness of what can no longer be tolerated in your space. Because vision isn't just a gift, it's a responsibility, you. And the wrong circle will make you resent the very thing you were chosen to carry. Discernment is your radar, sharpen it or crash. Life isn't just about seeing what's in front of you. It's about sensing what's beneath it. Every smile isn't genuine, every opportunity isn't divine, and every voice that claims to be for you isn't aligned with your destiny. Without discernment, you'll chase the wrong doors, partner with the wrong people, and trust what was meant to test you. Discernment is the difference between forward motion and delayed destruction, It's the internal system that warns you when something's off, even if everything looks right. It's not judgment, it's clarity. It's not paranoia, it's precision, People who lack discernment end up lost, not because they didn't have potential, because they didn't have perception. When your radar is dull, flattery feels like favor and pressure feels like purpose. You mistake noise for a signal, you confuse attention for alignment, and you end up in places that feel exciting for a moment, but cost you peace, power and progress. Life is loud, and the loudest voices are rarely the most honest. That's why discernment must become your discipline, because the higher you rise, the more skilled deception becomes, It won't come wrapped in red flags. It'll look like opportunity. It'll sound like mentorship. It'll feel like family. Discernment doesn't rely on emotion. It detects energy, It's that quiet pull in your gut that says, isn't it, when your eyes are telling you it should be. It's the sense of unease when someone's words sound right, but their spirit feels off, It's the weight in your chest when your soul is signaling danger that your mind can't logically explain yet. You felt it before. In the room you didn't want to be in, in the deal you weren't sure about, in the conversation that lingered long after it ended. And every time you ignored it, you paid the price. Because discernment doesn't shout, it whispers you. And if you've trained yourself to only move when it's obvious, you'll keep falling into subtle traps. Sharpening discernment starts with stillness. You can't hear what's real when your mind is cluttered with chaos. Clarity is a consequence of quiet. The ones who rush decisions are usually the ones who regret them. Discernment is sharpened in the pause, in the space between what's offered and what's accepted, in the questions you ask yourself before you say yes. What's the fruit of this connection? Does this opportunity align with my assignment or just my ego? Is this peace or is it pressure dressed up as potential? People who move with discernment ask the questions no one else dares to. They look beneath the surface. They listen beyond the volume. They trust their gut even when it makes them unpopular. The truth is, discernment will isolate you. Because when you start trusting your radar, you'll stop needing external validation. You'll start walking away from things that look great on paper, but don't sit right in your spirit. You'll start cutting ties with people who never did anything wrong, but who subtly drain your focus. You'll learn to recognize when something is sent to distract you, not develop you. And you won't always be able to explain it, but that's the point. Discernment isn't about proof. It's about alignment. It's about knowing what doesn't belong before it becomes a problem. And here's the dangerous part. The more powerful your calling, the more refined your radar needs to be. Because the enemy doesn't waste high-level tactics on low-level threats. The warfare becomes more strategic the closer you get to your breakthrough. The distractions become more beautiful. The invitations more enticing. The counterfeits more convincing. And if your discernment isn't sharp, you'll walk into traps thinking they're promotions. You'll confuse charisma for character. You'll be impressed by the performance and miss the poison. This is why discernment can't be optional. It's your navigation system in a world full of decoys. You have to train it, protect it. Listen to it even when it offends your comfort. Even when it disrupts relationships you thought were permanent. Even when it demands you step back when everyone else is rushing forward. Because discernment doesn't care about optics. It cares about outcomes. It doesn't ask if something feels good. It asks if something is good. And if you ignore it, don't be surprised when the crash comes. Not because you weren't warned, but because you refuse to listen.